do wonder, is it that easy to buy coke? I mean, even if I wanted any sorts of drugs, the closest I could get my hands on, I think, at least I assume I know who to talk to for, weed. But anything beyond that, even if I really wanted some, no dice. Which is good, I guess. I guess I'm hanging out with the right crowd then. Hey guys, I'm Kat, welcome back to my channel and another review. Today I would like to talk about The Comeback by Ella Berman. The story starts off with a prologue and a car crash. It's very short, don't worry, I'm not too fond of prologues either. And then it switches back to before Grace's accident, where she spent a whole year hiding out at her parents' in Anaheim, but making good use of the buffet at Disneyland, apparently. Sorry, Disney World? Which one is it? I can never remember. Anyway, she's making use of that until Snow White tells her to get lost. It's a great scene, actually. So Grace is an actress who's been hiding for the past year. She vanished without telling anybody why or where she was going. And most people she worked with before are like, oh wow, you're still alive. How nice of you to let us know. Yeah. She's hiding out at her parents to deal with her trauma. It becomes apparent pretty quickly that Grace has been abused by her director/manager, Abel, but the extent of the abuse is only uncovered throughout the story. So trigger warning, if sexual or psychological abuse is an issue for you, then this book might not be for you. I mean, she deals with the trauma, so it's an interesting perspective into how victims of such abuse could deal with it. But I think it's also a very specific case with her being a celebrity and rich to the point where you don't have to work for a year and you'll still be fine. I mean, how many of us could do that? All in all, I think it's a pretty good book with a very interesting character to follow. And there will be more spoilers from here on out. My absolute favorite scene, which reminded me of Bowfinger, was when Grace was trying to flee from a paparazzo who caught her buying a pizza and a magazine or something in like trashy outfit, unkempt hair and whatnot. So essentially like most of us would look on a Saturday morning after a rough week. But for us, nobody would give a shit. For Grace, it's a paparazzo seeing her and going like, I need to take all of the pictures. Her reaction is, well, fight or flight. So I can either deal with this paparazzo or I can run across this freeway where there's no pedestrian crossing of any kind, obviously. And she goes to the freeway. It was brilliant. While trying to reclaim her career, Grace also deals with some very complex family relations. The relation to her mom is very strained. And the one with her sister isn't much better, although they are more on par than she's with her mom. Her sister also shares her problems with Grace eventually, which is being slut-shamed at school because she sent a guy she had a fling with a nude. It wasn't even herself, but something she nicked off of Reddit. Anyway, Esme is dealing with that and Grace is trying to help, which kind of backfires at some point, but she tried. Some of the characters really ticked me off, but I think it was in a good way because that's what they were intended for. For one, Abel's wife, Amelia. She gets along quite well with Grace and is trying to help her out after Grace moves closer to, well, her abuser. I don't know why you would want to live in a house where you can actually see your abuser's home and essentially stalk them, but that's what Grace goes with. And Amelia just meets up with Grace a couple of times, tries to help her, buys her stuff, makes sure that her hair doesn't look like a bird just nested in it again. But then when it becomes clear what Abel has actually done to her, because prior Amelia just assumed that they had an affair or something, but she would have taken that out just on her husband, not on Grace apparently. But when it becomes clear, okay, this was never an affair, Grace had never any interest And it becomes clear this wasn't an affair and Grace never had any interest in Abel, but was abused by him. Amelia chooses to side with her husband and tell Grace that there's no point bringing this to court because you can't prove anything and it's been too long and rubbish like that, essentially. It holds true at the end of the book because it doesn't seem to have any legal consequences for Abel, but I would assume that it still does something to his work. You don't get to see it because it cuts off where Grace actually stands up for herself and says, "I'm done being a victim, screw you." Which is another thing. The ending had less punch than I expected it to, but on the other hand, when Grace steps onto the stage of this award show to hand Abel a prize, and she says the things she says about no longer being a victim and that he no longer controls her, everybody in the audience already seems to have an assumption as to what she's alluding to and what has happened beforehand, so she doesn't even need to state it outright for people to get what has been going on. Grace's friend Laurel is another issue, I would say. They're great characters, they have great scenes together and the chemistry is just fun to read, but they both have a drug problem and Grace has an alcohol problem too. I don't know whether that is the same for Laurel, but she has a drug problem. So Grace is in a bad spot, calls her up and tells her to bring their friends, which is their code for bring booze and coke. And instead of saying no, Laurel turns up with booze and coke. And while this might be realistic and accurate, you also have to, you have to understand at some point that, okay, if you have a drug problem and you can call somebody who's happy to supply them, you need to cut this person out of your life. If you have a drug problem and your friend with the same problem keeps calling you to supply them with shit, then you need to cut this person out of your life. And Grace didn't get the memo for that, apparently. So overall, I think this book deserves this cat. And I can only recommend it, unless the abuse is a trigger for you, then you should stay away. Well, like and subscribe and comment down below if you want to help this channel out. And thank you guys for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. Bye guys! Life is hard as a kid, I know. No, actually I don't. You can sleep 18 hours a day, it's a charmed life. Oh, Jesus. He punched you in the face there. Yeah, no, the mystery box goes away now. Cat, your butt is on the mouse. Is this necessary? I like how I can just fondle something near your butt and you don't react at all. Say bye, Cleo. Or just purr. That's good too.